Good afternoon from the Paris Peace Forum and greetings to wherever you may be. If you're following the event online, I'm Mohan Kumar and I'm chairman of the Research and Information System for Developing Countries. And I'm extremely privileged to head this panel, to chair this panel, which comprises excellent panelists whom I will introduce presently. But the main purpose of this panel is to try and see if we can draw inspiration from the South. Rather than keep copying projects from the North, we are trying to bring three wonderful people, whom you can see on the screen along with me, who will talk about their projects. I have great pride in introducing Nasser Al Khoury, who leads the programs at Generation Amazing in the context of the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022. Mr. Al Khoury, welcome to the panel. We've got Tulika Srivatsava, who's from Executive Director, Women's Funds Asia, another amazing institution which does things for gender. So real pleasure to have you, Tulika. Welcome on the panel. And of course, Carol Vasquez Restrepo, who's another person who's a publicist, artist, lives in Colombia, and has been done amazing things in environmental, cultural, and educational issues. So basically, we are trying to find out from these three wonderful people whether you can draw inspiration from what is happening in the South as we speak. That is the real purpose of this panel. I just wanted to request my three people that if you can talk between 3 and 5 minutes, your opening remarks, tell us about your projects which you are doing in the South along with other Southern countries. Then we will go for another round if time permits, and then I will try to see the audience questions and then channel to you. But before I do that, I seek your indulgence because my colleague was not able to join. So I will myself make the presentation, if you like, on the wonderful global public good that India is giving to the global South, which is the open platform, digital platform called CoWIN. I don't have a PowerPoint, but very briefly, let me say this. It's not easy vaccinating 1.1 billion people, and that is what India has done. It is amazing what we have done, and there are amazing reasons why this was possible, but it would not have been possible without a digital platform. There are as many as 900 million people who have mobile phones in India. We have 800 million internet users. And this CoWIN platform, as we call it, COWIN, and I will request the organizers of the conference to make this available at a later date, but it was an open source platform that India is happy to share with the world at no cost. We are meeting some of the most fundamental principles of South-South cooperation, which is making available a global digital public good for mutual benefit without any conditionalities, free, so there is not even a question of concessional finance. And finally, we are doing it for making countries in the South self-reliant, for demonstrating that we do not always need to import models from the North. So this CoWIN platform, to save time, I shall be brief, is essentially something that people can access. They can make a booking for their first vaccination. The CoWIN platform keeps track of what your status is, and you can subsequently get a second vaccination. You may ask, what if people don't have a mobile phone? So we thought of that, and we had what is known as assisted participation in the COVID platform. The CoWIN platform, therefore, allows for hospitals, for nurses, for others to assist patients who may be illiterate, who may not have phones, who may not possess the technical expertise to be able to do this. So it is equitable, it is inclusive, it has got scalability, and it's got even feedback and analysis. This is something that India is happy to share with the global South. As I said, I do not have a PowerPoint, but we will request the organizers to put it up in 2 to 3 days' time. So, to give an opportunity to others to speak, may I begin with Mr. Nasser Al Khoury, Programs Director, Generation Amazing at the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. Can you say something about what your agency, your institution is doing just to draw inspiration about South-South cooperation? Mr. Nasser, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and good afternoon to everybody joining the session. I am from Generation Amazing. It's the social and human legacy initiative that was launched in 2010 during the early stages of the Qatar's bid for the 2022 FIFA World Cup. The idea behind Generation Amazing is that we utilize the power of football as a platform for initiating and delivering development objectives. These development objectives are aligned to Qatar National's Vision 2030 and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. So basically, we're using football to accelerate the achievement of the UN SDGs and our national development objectives. And this is a legacy program, of the upcoming FIFA World Cup 2022 here in Qatar. And Generation Amazing is part of an innovative partnership consisting of the Qatar Football Association and the Supreme Committee and the Confederation of Northern, Central, and American Caribbean Associations of Football. So this is the CONCACAF, which is the governing body of football of the US, Mexico, Canada, and the Caribbean states. And, CONCACAF is composed of 41 member associations. The member associations are the representative football governing bodies in every, one of the 41 countries or states. They represent the governance of football, and basically the majority of these member associations are located in southern countries. So Generation Amazing has partnered with CONCACAF's Next Play program, which is, our aim is to deliver football for development activities across the region. And the collaboration with CONCACAF is a long-term plan. It spans over 3 years. And actually 4 years, and the plan is to cover, also the future World Cup. So the 2026 World Cup, which is taking place in the US, between the US, Mexico, and Canada, because CONCACAF is going to be, kind of their member association, kind of their umbrella organization of football governance in the region. So the idea is that we basically create this legacy and a long-lasting legacy that connects the Qatar 2022 World Cup with the 2026 North American World Cup. And one of the key aspects of the collaboration is a Football for Development curriculum that has been co-created between Generation Amazing and CONCACAF. As I mentioned earlier, CONCACAF has a Next Play program that is in partnership with Nike, and Generation Amazing has a Football for Development training course that we've developed with expertise. So basically, we created we co-created a joint program, and the initial rollout of this is targeted at 11 member associations this year, and these are all southern states and southern countries. So the idea is that we collaborate, with financial assistance, obviously, and I'll get back into I'll explain this a bit further down the line. And there's a capacity building and knowledge generation and exchange component to this partnership as well. The reason why the cooperation at this level, with the global governance level of football is critical, for us to involve the member associations from the 41 states. This kind of ensures the legacy program between the two, again, going back to the legacy between the two hosts of the next FIFA World Cups, which is Qatar 2022 and the North American, Canada, Mexico, USA World Cup. The cooperation at this level enables the partnership to potentially have huge legacy impact by reaching, out to the community coaches and young people within the CONCACAF region. There is a great potential to sustain the legacy beyond, Qatar as well, and beyond the Arab region. So this is kind of, and there's a lot of potential for, sharing of knowledge, exchange of expertise, best practices between Qatar and the CONCACAF, and within the 41 member associations. And that has, a huge potential for wide impact.
Thank you very much, Nasser. That sounds really, really amazing. I'll come back to you with a little bit more question and detail on this. Let me now turn to Tulika Srivastava, and I want to begin by saying that if there is one issue that probably stands neglected in the COVID and the post-COVID context, it is gender. And I am so struck and so impressed with what I have read about Women's Fund Asia. So, Tulika, please tell us all the good things that you've been doing.
So thank you so much for that, Mohan. And thank you, my co-panelists, for taking this time to talk about the South-South collaboration and the power of change and the power of transformation that lies in the leadership of people from the South. Very grateful for all our participants who are joining us today. Just to start by saying that I'm here not only to speak about the Women's Fund Asia, but actually to introduce and talk about the Leading from the South, which is an amazing program covering all of the global South, from Latin America to Africa to the Asia, and essentially ensuring that women, trans people, intersex community people, and girls are not left out of being in charge of the change they want and building that transformation. So Leading from the South, funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands, has taken leadership in actually living through the conversation around shifting power to the South and decolonization of aid itself, and where Southern feminist women's funds are in leadership in ensuring the money lands where it needs to go so that women, girls, trans, and the intersex community people can access their human rights, can build movements to sustain the transformation and the changes they want to see, and actually talk about claiming resources on the ground of non-discrimination and equality in the world of social justice, and ensure that their work is not only realized but sustained, and we are able to access equality through a sustained process of claiming and owning, rather than simply being seen as beneficiaries or targets or even victims who somehow survive, and changing that piece to leadership and building it through the fabulous partnership between Fondo de las Mujeres del Sur of Latin America, funding all of Latin America and Caribbean, FIMI, which is the Indigenous Women's Fund that works globally, African Women's Development Fund, which funds all of Africa as well as MENA region, which is Middle East and North Africa, and Women's Fund Asia, which is funding 18 countries in Asia, and are coming together. And I think if you've read something about us, in the first phase, which was from 2016 through to 2020, we were able to fund together in 60 countries to the tune of 36.7 million, over 300 initiatives, ensuring that we balanced programming with movement building so that the feminist movements can be in leadership of the change that they want to see. And I think that is where, as feminists, as women, as speaking for communities that are discriminated on grounds of their gender and their sexual orientations, we can talk about the practices across grassroots, rural realities, as well as looking at people everywhere who are discriminated on grounds of just identity and the way in which their gender or their sex is understood by a larger, not so empathetic state, shall we say. And this gives us this momentum of building ourselves, of leading ourselves, of being self-led, of being recognized in our own identities, is I think what Leading from the South talks about and pushes. And I'm really, really proud that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands understands this and has not only talked about shifting the power and not only talked about the decolonization of aid, but has actually is living that through. And, and the challenges that we face as the Global South, as you well know, are deep, and particularly in the COVID context, when the caregiving work of women, where the unpaid caregiving work of women, I don't think I overstate the case when I say women are subsidizing nations in Global South by the work that they do, by not getting the fair wages, by continuing to stand by communities, by not letting go of the elderly, of the children, and standing by, just holding thing around surviving, around health, around, any issue you pick up. It's women who are kind of picking up that burden. And entire communities that are not even recognized as citizens, whose experience of COVID is not even recorded or documented. So those pieces of work, I think, as LFS, it gives me a lot of, with great humility, that we can stand behind them, that we can be the wind beneath their wings, and we are the path they can walk on. So I think I'm going to stop there and hope to answer more questions.
Thank you, Tulika. That really sounds wonderful. But I will come back to you with more details and more questions and information that you can share with us. Carol, if I can turn to you, and I like the fact that you are focusing on young leaders in your area of action. And that's important because the youth is who we are all going to, really the future of the world belongs to the youth. So if you can tell us a little bit about what you do, how you do it, and how do you motivate the youth? That is the fundamental question I want to ask you, because with all the distraction that is available for the youth, how do you get them to be motivated on serious issues of the planet? Carol, over to you.
Okay, hello. So we lack it's young leader, read young leader. So we work with Amazonas persons, so young people. So we believe that we have to create strange leaders, because how do you say, is the future of the world. And we work with volunteers, so we create events and reads with the volunteers. So we work together, and the motivation that we believe that we use with there. So in this panorama of the pandemic and the technology is so difficult for the young people. So we believe that the best pay, I don't know if maybe is the correct word, is believe that if we encourage and stretch the young people, we can do a lot of things. So we have to protect areas that involucrate a lot of people. So the young people motivate because we create like a red, and the young people can participate in politics events and events like this. So we think that is the best motivation that we have, and encourage the young people in the Amazon is so important for us.
Thank you very much, Carol, for that. And I will come back to you with other questions. I want to expand a little bit about what I spoke about earlier, which is the phenomenal open digital platform called CoWIN that India is using to vaccinate 1.1 billion people, and we are trying to do more. Some of the things we have talked about had to be tweaked to actually keep in mind the Indian circumstances. For example, a blended registration, which will involve both digital but also walk-in, because some people just simply don't have digital access in India. And this is important, and I mention it in this context because when we talk of impressive projects from the South, as all three of you are involved in, I think it's important to keep in mind the developmental context of the South, the country concerned, so that the specificities of the development context of the South is kept in mind. So we couldn't have just gone ahead and said, everybody must have an online registration. Simply wouldn't work in a country like India. So we had to think of blended registration. We had to track the vaccination schedule because, as I said earlier, there are people who are illiterate in India. So you need to track and send messages using this platform saying your second vaccination is due. So please prepare yourself and come. We had offline on-site registration, as I said, assisted registration, simplified access, which is finding a vaccination center which uses these things, which is close to you, and really minimal data inputs. And this is important. When we use a digital platform these days, you cannot ask for intrusive personal information. It simply will not work. You will get into regulatory problems as to whether you can share this information with authorities. Can authorities share this information with others? We had to be mindful of the fact that we had to seek non-sensitive data inputs. The required information was name, age, gender. That's it. So these things have to be kept in mind. In any case, I'm proud, I'm particularly proud to say that India is in conversations with the French Guyana, we are in conversation with Vietnam, and we are in conversation with several African countries to share this open platform called CoWIN so that countries can use it to vaccinate their citizens. And this is what I wanted to say. I wanted to, if you allow me, have a follow-up question to Nasser. I'm taking the liberty of calling all of you by first name. Please call me Mohan. Nasser, you've taken the opportunity of Qatar's successful bid. Can you tell us how you can make sure the commitments made in this context will materialize? And how do you keep the momentum of this multi-actor coalition going? So I'm asking you about commitments and how you will make sure these commitments are met, and how do you keep the momentum of this multi-actor coalition going? Nasser, over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mohan. So in terms of, I think that's a very good question, first of all. And, the partnership, clearly outlines the roles and responsibilities between Generation Amazing and CONCACAF. And there's, also to note here that there's this partnership that we have with CONCACAF is part of a wider, partnership between CONCACAF and the Qatar Football Association, which sees our national team playing in the Golden Cup with the Southern teams. So this is something that, that we're aware of. The Southern teams are very highly skillful in football, and therefore this creates an opportunity for the Qatar national team to enhance its skills and prepares them for the next, for the big kind of, milestone, which is the World Cup 2022 next year. So on top of that, there's that partnership, and then we decided to roll out a social responsibility aspect. And this is kind of where we developed the partnership between CONCACAF's Next Play program and Generation Amazing. And the partnership involves a curriculum that was co-created between Generation Amazing and CONCACAF, where CONCACAF oversees the implementation of the projects on the ground among its member associations, because this is within the CONCACAF region. And then Generation Amazing and CONCACAF have also created, again, like as I mentioned, the philanthropy fund. The philanthropy fund basically is used to kind of fund these football for development programs over the 41 countries over the duration of the partnership. And again, the aim is to use football as a tool for social good. So we have a shared vision of working closely and collaboratively to ensure that football for development coach education is accessible within the region's communities as well. One of the key elements, for Generation Amazing and for CONCACAF as well, and values that we both promote and believe in, is being inclusive and accessible to all. So that's something that this partnership is focusing on and stressing as well. And then the multi-actor coalition momentum is maintained by ensuring that the shared values are clearly understood between the parties, and one of the key shared values focuses on ensuring actors' involvement, actors that are involved recognize the power of football and the transformative power of football for social change. When it comes to CONCACAF's Next Play program, they collaborate with ministries of education and ministries of sports within their jurisdiction, within their member associations, within the countries that they're, under the CONCACAF umbrella. And the member associations then work with schools under the ministries, and this multi-actor relationship, within the regional football governing body and the country member associations and the government officials and schools and communities and coaches and volunteers. I think this creates a very conductive environment, and this is how we make sure that our impact is maintained and materialized. And one of the ways that we also make sure that there's a knowledge transfer, and we have a coach, we have a train the trainer model where we build capacity as well. So that that is one of the ways. We also have when we look at kind of the partnership and serving diverse communities within this region, within the region that we work in. There are specific social problems within every respective jurisdiction of the member association. So the joint curriculum is adapted to address those social challenges, within the local area, and then we basically meet the need and the interest of the members on the ground. So common to all of the member associations, one of the things that we see to the public or private, third sector actors is a need to create or provide opportunities for safe spaces for young people to engage in football activities, but also safe spaces that are for the community, that are gives people ownership and a sense of belonging. So CONCACAF oversees the provision of the training of the coaches to ensure the commitment of safeguarding and inclusion of young people in football is achieved. So that's another aspect of that we alongside CONCACAF make sure to maintain, and we this is something that the program stresses on about as well. When it comes to the Next Play program, with CONCACAF, there are local coordinators who have gone through a Train the Trainer program. As part of the multi-actor local coordinators support the implementation of the program. The momentum is maintained via training opportunities made available through the local coordinators. So that's sort of in a nutshell, how we're trying as much as possible to maintain the program.
Thank you, Nasser. That's very helpful. If I can turn to Tulika. Tulika, I realize that you're working with women's groups and funds that are geographically distant, very far from each other. And I meant to ask you, how do you overcome that geographical barrier, if you like? And secondly, has potential competition for funds and for groups, has that ever hindered cooperation? Can you tell us if there are lessons involved in that kind of thing? But it'll be interesting to hear your point of view.
Yeah, thank you. I think the distance question is easily answered. I am in Paris. I think I'm the only one in Paris at this moment, while the three of you are really, really far away from where we are.
No, I'm in Paris, I have to tell you. But anyway,
oh, excellent! So we should definitely meet up for coffee, Mohan, after this.
Yes.
But really, I mean, I think the distance is not an issue, because as 4 women's funds, as sister funds, we sit in a network called the Prospera International Network of Women's Funds, who are focused on the Global South. In fact, our North-based sisters are also using at the minimum of 70% of all the resources to fund the Global South and the Global East. So I think that question is not at all a challenge. We talk to each other literally on a weekly basis. We are doing program meetings on a 3-monthly basis. We are even talking to our donors who very much see themselves as partners on, I think, once in 6 months at the very least. And we do a linking and learning annually. So there is really, the distance is not at all a problem, because our mandate, our political mandate of being the resource justice activists, of landing resources in the hands of women and girls and trans and the intersex communities are shared across the region. To be very, very clear that as women's funds, we see ourselves, that is our role of ensuring that resources never become an issue for the feminist movements to grow strong and realize their mandate. So that's what we do. That having said that, I think the competition question is easily answered. In fact, today morning I was talking to another sister fund based in the north, and she just shared this whole piece around how do we see competition. There's a negative way of looking at competition, where we see there is this, for the same, we are all pulling for the same little basket of resources, and it comes from a frame of paucity. It doesn't come from an abundance framework. And we all feel that if we don't get it, then if anybody else has got it, then it's been denied to us. On the other hand, we see competition also as seeing in a more positive way, that it kind of clarifies who has what strengths, who can play to what. Even the person so-called coming last in a race has shown strength in being in that game, in participating, in moving forward. And I think that needs to be recognized very, very clearly. So even for the competition, I don't see it. And even more importantly, as sister funds, we are collaborators. We work together. We have together raised this money. We have together designed this program. We are together in making sure that the feminist movements of the Global South, their voices are raised. Our women leaders are raised. We're very clear we're not the leaders. All four of us are very, very clear. The leaders are our partners on the ground doing the work, the frontline defenders doing the work, the grassroots who are actually standing ground, whether it's COVID, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's conflict. In all of that, those are the leaders, those are the heroes that we support. Our role is to support them. And we are same in that mandate. So we are collaborators, and competition is, the more resources we get, the more we'll put it onto the collaboration table. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It's all the shared table that we bring it onto. We are part of the movement. We stand together. We are sisters. So I think that is very, very clear on our competition piece.
That is so good to hear, Tulika. Thank you very much for that response. Carol, if I can come to you, and you work with youth leaders across countries and so on, can this be a challenge in the South-South cooperation context? And do you think there are specific tools or strategies that people can adopt in order to make this a successful paradigm or a model for South-South cooperation? I'm talking of involving youth and so on.
Okay, so we have something so important is that we learn from indigenous people that everything is in the world is connected. So it's not possible to turn to the north. We need to create a space for the technical cooperation. So we learn so much from indigenous people, culture and knowledge and everything. So it's important for learning and transferring the skills from there and apply in us. So social proposing solutions to problems that affect countries in different ways, such as the climate emergency. And maybe we can create tools like teach from the young people how protect the areas that we need to conserve and to protect. So maybe the strategy is that we can make events online or webinars, or our vision is teach so bring education for there and for us to encourage the young people. So we think that the most power tools that we have is connect with the indigenous people for change this situation.
Thank you very much, Carol. If I can ask a common question to all three of you, and we will begin with Nasser. Can South-South collaboration be completely independent from northern countries? Or do you think there are aspects like finance and technology and infrastructure that become sticking points? So the question I'm asking is, can you really talk of South-South cooperation all the time completely divorced from northern countries? Jasser, if you can go first, please.
Sure.
Sorry, Nasser.
So I think, yeah, so on that, I think, South-South cooperation should be seen as complementary to North-South cooperation. I think that's something that we, from our experience, as Generation Amazing, we've built community clubs in over 32, communities across the region and internationally as well. So I think, South-South cooperation should be seen as, something that complements North-South cooperation. They both serve obviously different interests and have different characteristics. But North-South cooperation mainly, involves financial assistance, I think, and South-South cooperations stress more sort of on the technical cooperation and knowledge transfer. However, when it comes to our partnership with CONCACAF, it includes, some financial assistance, but there's a lot of knowledge exchange and capacity building to leverage the power of football for social change. Both, us with CONCACAF, we have courses, we have programs that, utilize football as a tool for social change and social development. So these courses, have been designed to upskill community coaches and to develop expertise within the South-South cooperation. So from that perspective, I think, South-South initiatives are good for collective resilience for developing countries, and South-South initiatives are also perceived as economical and effective compared to North-South financial relationships. Members within such, partnerships have a chance to share best practice, generate local knowledge, apply local knowledge to local problems as well. Since members such as, CONCACAF, are, they're from the region, they face similar development challenges. They're adaptive to solutions that they, propose and generate to social issues. So this is, not very sort of is not complex, since it's contextualized, right? So they're more similar, and they're more closer to these social issues than anyone else. So that's that's sort of our that's how kind of Generation Amazing perceives this question in terms of the cooperation being completely independent. We don't think it should be completely independent. We see it as complementary more than anything else.
Thank you, Nasser. I think that makes a lot of sense. If I can turn to Tulika, and what I mean to really elaborate a little bit on my question is that I don't for a moment think that South-South cooperation, or even trilateral cooperation, if you like, if you know what I mean, I don't think these should be considered as a replacement for North-South developmental assistance or cooperation, because there is a moral imperative when we talk of North-South developmental assistance. What I'm asking is essentially whether South-South cooperation, you think, can be contemplated, conceived completely in the absence of the North, because it is possible that you could still be dependent on the North for funding, for technology, for infrastructure, and so on. I somehow think you are the best placed person to answer that question. We're talking something about the Netherlands Foreign Ministry and how they were up to it in a way. So if I can have your sense on this issue, Tulika.
Sure. So I think as far as South-South cooperation is concerned, we have to understand where the Global South terminology is coming from. It is coming from a deep history of colonization, and we cannot deny it. It is coming from a deep history of people being stolen from their countries, of people being entirely displaced, of being put into slavery. For example, with Africa, the Africa places what happened with the North Bloc, or what happened with South Asia, where people were taken as indentured labor away from us. And so there is a deep history of which cannot be denied of deprivation, of exploitation, of slavery, and that is where the global South emerges from. Which is not to say that today in 2021 we don't acknowledge that similar patterns of exploitation, marginalization, deprivation, deep poverty continue to be seen across the world, even in the global North, what is so-called called the global North. And it isn't as if there isn't unemployment, or there aren't poverty challenges there. At the same time, there is a need for reparations. There is a need for acknowledgement of what needs to happen in the South, and the leadership has to be in the hands of the Southern people. Therefore, the actual implementation partnership, the actual development of agendas has to be in a South-South framework. And as far as resources are concerned, you're right. I talked about the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Netherlands because they are the main funders to the Leading from the South. At the same time, Leading from the South is not the only program all the four funds run. We have several programs and there are several funders, including indigenous funding. Let us not go away from that. At this moment, there are a lot of funders based in the global South who are funding work around feminist mobilization, around equality, around human rights agenda development and human rights movement building. So there isn't as if it is only the North that is a key partner in terms of mobilizing resources. Please remember, the resource mobilizing is being done by the global South people. It is the women's funds of the global South with our sisterhood in the Prospera network who are mobilizing the resources. So, and I agree with you that resourcing can't be the reason for North partnership, but we acknowledge that, and that's fine. But the design, the ownership, the intellectual copyright, the intellectual ownership of all the processes we run definitely sits and belongs to the global South and to our relationship and to our collaboration. And there is no confusion in our mind about it. So therefore, when you ask me, can there be a South-South collaboration without a North partnership? I don't even think that that's relevant, because we will bring the North in as and when we want to bring them in. And when we don't want them in, we will make sure they're not there. So it is an ownership that we run. It is not as if we can't exist without them. For that matter, can they exist without us? I mean, if you look at social justice aid, we've already seen it. Today, we know with OECD data, only 1% of social justice aid is coming to gender equality. Of that, only 0.339% is going to women-led initiatives. We are not even counting the trans and the intersex communities. So look at the paucity of resourcing for what needs to be done, which is just a basic given. Gender equality can't be still such a stunning kind of, oh my God, there isn't gender equality. We should be able to take it for granted. We are not. So therefore, it remains an unfinished agenda. And the whole world, North, South, East, West, they have to all put their shoulders to the wheel if we truly want a world in which all humans can live equally. And I think we all want that. So if we want to do that, we can't really build the artificial divides of South and North to that extent. But the ownership of who is most deprived, the ownership of being self-led, I think that cannot be compromised. So, and one of the reasons I really admire my partners in the ministry, my program lead in the ministry, because they are trying really, really hard to walk the talk around shifting power. They listen to us. When we say this is not data that's publishable, they step back. When we say this is how we want to mold the program, they listen and they step back. They're not being, how can I say, there's some donors who push you and the indicators and the numbers. But our donors are understanding that. And not only the ministry, but also the other foundations we work with, whether it's Wellspring, Ford, Oak, Foundation for Just Society. We have these wonderful donors who are perhaps located in the North. But I don't think they embody the northern spirit as it was we saw, say, 50 years ago. And that change has been really welcome. And we like to see that happen more and more. And I think that's where we're trying to speak from. And therefore, I mean, I think the North owes us, definitely. I do believe that. And at the same time, we will not give up leadership and we will not lead from behind as far as claiming the resources for social justice, particularly feminist movement building are concerned.
Thank you, Tulika. That's a very clear message, loud and clear. Absolutely no confusion on that point. Thank you. If I can go to Carol now and ask her about young project leaders, what is their perspective on the North, Carol? How do they view the North? When I say the North, I'm talking of the developed countries, and these are basically countries in youth in Latin America and Caribbean. How do they see the United States? How do they see Canada? How do they see Europe? That'll be interesting for me to know.
Okay, so this question is so hard because we think that, how I say before, everything is connected, and what happens in the south influence the north. So it's necessary to work together to create networks and open processes that affect the social, environment, cultural, and political aspects that affect the construction of a path for peace. So we work with Brazil and Ecuador, Peru, countries that are in Amazons. So we think that we have to work together, and we see the North countries like countries that can help us with skills, tools, and we think that we can change knowledge and tools to transform. To create things some new. So we need tools, technology, and education, or methodologies that the North countries use and bring to South. And we think that it's important the communication between South and North. So it's important to think that from South we can transfer into the north to ancestral knowledge, and is essential between the countries. So we think that we are so power, and we have a lot of skills, and we have a lot of things or tools that we can share with the north countries. So we think that it's important the great communication between these north and south, and not think only from north to south, maybe think south to north. So we think that we can apply, or we can use a lot of things from the North countries to education methodologies, or maybe to tools like technology for our Latin American and Caribbean young people. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I go back to Nasser because there is a very interesting question, and maybe all three of you can take it. Just try and be as brief as possible. What role do you see for the civil society as a bridge in the case of South-South cooperation? Nasser, can we start with you? The role of civil society to act as a bridge. So I am assuming the questioner has in mind a civil society in the north and a civil society in the south, and how they can act as a bridge to enhance and to fully implement South-South cooperation. Nasser.
Yeah. So on that, I think civil society has a huge role to play to strengthen the ties and to learn from each other and again exchange knowledge and capacity. I think the civil society is plays an important has an important role and responsibility within their community, but also in strengthening the South-South ties. When it comes to civil society, we have a partnership actually with the International Federation for Red Cross and Red Crescent, which involves us working with the local national societies in 4 countries: in Iraq, Myanmar, Argentina, and Uganda. And so, with the program, again, we developed a co-designed and co-created a football for development program. It's also aligned with IFRC's Youth as Active Behaviors of Change. And so this is a curriculum that they've developed. So we looked at both curriculums again and complemented, developed, co-designed and co-developed one curriculum that has been rolled out. And this is an ongoing, partnership that we have. And yesterday we had our midterm or mid-year gathering with all the National Society members to share some of their, within their civil societies, to share some of their success stories and some of the lessons and best practices that they've learned so far, and to just show the impact of the the wider program as well. But I think and again, one thing that we anticipate and aim for is that these civil societies would then in Iraq, Uganda, Myanmar, and Argentina would be having conversations and learning from each other in terms of best practices and capacity building. So the civil society and civic society have a very important role in kind of strengthening the ties.
Thank you, Nasser. Tulika, have you witnessed in action civil societies acting as a bridge? And if you can give me a concrete example, I'll be thrilled.
I think we have all seen the international organizations such as Oxfam, such as CARE, Save the Children, Novib, all acting and flowing resources to the Global South, all acting as partners and implementing programs at the grassroots. And they have been a bridge. I have to kind of acknowledge that. At the same time, as a women's fund, I have to also say that ways in which money has flown from civil societies in the North with civil society partners, and now I'm talking about grassroots implementing partners in the South, has been a bit, can we say, loaded with often the work of the grassroots partners getting invisibilized and not being democratically represented by being done by them, and therefore that has been a challenge. So on one hand, while the civil society in the North has been very powerful a partner in being able to ensure that the work around gender equality, that the work around social justice, the work around human rights gets done, at the same time there are challenges therein. And even today, as women's funds, where we have sisters in the global North, whether it's Global Fund for Women or Mama Cash or Astria or Urgent Action Fund, there is always, even from them, there is a big push to make sure that the Global South voices are the ones that are speaking up. They themselves have put themselves a step back, taken a step back, allowing regional funds, not even allowing, I would say, strengthening regional funds in being able to do their work around making sure the knowledge transfers happen, making sure that the voices of the Global South are the ones leading the knowledge transfers. And it is not just about the technical pieces of, who can write the best report, but actually what experientially has to change, how transformation has worked, what are the distinctions in the way transformation happens for different communities. We are just witness to what has happened in Afghanistan. How will that come to be now? How are we looking at reconstruction and looking at reconstruction from the perspective of Afghanistan being in the place it is today, and what is happening with people inside as well as the people outside, and how will we support each other? So what kind of civil society will come together to help them? Whether it will be through a North-South partnership, whether it will be a South-South partnership, whether it will be how will we link with the people within Afghanistan, and how will we link with those who are outside? So those questions become more and more kind of complex and nuanced in the way we understand them and in the way that we respond to them. When you ask me that how critical it is to see a civil society of the North and of the South, I think it's very critical. I don't think a civil society should have an agenda for the Global South without a civil society partner that takes ownership of that agenda for the Global South. I think today in 2021, I think the Global North civil society well recognizes that its role is to be that of a support to the leadership of a Global South partner civil society organization, rather than give them the agenda. I think that power shift has happened and needs to happen even more. I think I'm going to stop there on that one.
No, thank you very much. I was looking exactly for that kind of shift, and I'm glad it has happened and it is happening. Carol, very briefly, we're running out of time, but I'll just give you 1 minute to to get your reaction. Do you agree with what Tulika is saying, Nasser is saying? Do you think civil society can act as a bridge?
Yes, yes, I think that can you repeat me, please, the question? The
No,
connection was.
the question is, can civil societies act as a bridge between the North and the South, or even to encourage South-South cooperation? Can civil societies spur and give momentum to South-South cooperation by acting as a bridge? That's the question.
Yes, yes, I think like that can work together the civil society, because we need in this point we need get visibilization or visibilize our job from the relab from our organization, and we think that civil society is so important to learn and to change knowledge and tools and skills. So I'm agree and with my other
Panelists,
Kalika.
okay.
So
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carol. One last question, because the questioner has taken the trouble of asking the question. I'm really going to request all of you to stick to 1 minute. It's about triangular cooperation. And I found the question interesting because I may be putting words in the questioner's mouth, but I think the intention of the questioner is to ask whether you can seamlessly shift from South-South to trilateral after you've exhausted the possibility of South-South cooperation on a project. Can you move to trilateral? Is that something, or can you think of using trilateral cooperation, if you like, to boost existing South-South cooperation projects? Nasser, you have only 1 minute. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, I think, using, again, like we said, I like the word that they used in terms of boosting the relationship and boosting kind of, I definitely think that I agree with that triangular approach, and in instances it works, and it can work. And, we have some examples from Generation Amazing, working in communities where we did, have triangular partnerships that we leveraged to kind of support on the ground, and it can work and can complement and amplify the impact that we have in these
Thank you, Nasser.
communities.
Thank you, Nasser. Tulika, 1 minute, please.
I completely agree with you, Mohan, and with Nasser, that it's not possible to remain stagnant. I think all programs, even in terms of partnership, even in terms of what we're doing, everything has to change, constantly grow and evolve. And if the need is to bring in more partners and triangulate the relationship to build more, I don't know, north, south, east, west. I mean, it's really difficult to say who it will be, but definitely no organization, no initiative, no program can be stagnant. It has to grow, it has to evolve, it has to change to remain relevant. So I think that answers your question.
Thank you very much. Carol, half a minute. I'm sorry, I'm putting you in a difficult situation. Do you agree we can use trilateral cooperation to boost South-South cooperation?
Yes, so we think that it's necessary build society with education that transform our insight in the peace, and we think that in RELAC, so we need to get a collaboration between all the countries and between South and the North. Not only what happens inside South or in Amazon, so it's between what happens outside, is inside or and outside. So we think that yes, it's important collaboration.
Thank you, Carol. I just want to thank from the bottom of my heart all three of you. You've been fabulous, and it's been a great discussion on the subject. I'm not going to attempt to summarize, but I will say at least three brief points. One, I don't think we should expect South-South cooperation or trilateral cooperation to replace North-South. Second, I like the point made by Tulika that the agenda has to be South-driven. And that's clear. The agenda has to be driven and established by the South. We are quite agnostic where the help comes from, if I understand all three of you correctly. Let's be agnostic about it. Don't be religious about where the money is coming from. You are interested in the outcome. And finally, I do believe, and I would like to, if you allow me, blow my trumpet a little bit and talk about the Indian CoWIN platform. I think we've started creating global public goods. And that is a welcome development in the South. So once again, thank you very much for participating in the panel discussion. I hope to see you, at least some of you, in the future. Thank you.